Hello and welcome to the Bundesliga show, the prediction show on the Thursday evening, ahead of match day 19 now of the Bundesliga season. Obviously, we're well into the Rückrunde now, and January's still kicking on. And as you can see, I'm joined by Cam as well. So how are you doing over there, Cam?
Yeah, I'm good. Thanks for having me on. I can't believe when you said game week 19.
Yeah.
It's flying by, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. It's crazy, isn't it? Obviously, with that English Avoca the other week, it seems as though the games are going faster, doesn't it? But it's definitely.
I mean, looking back at these fixtures, it seems 2 minutes ago since we were watching the same fixtures back in August. So it's mad.
It really is. But I think the weather was a bit better back in August than what it is now. I don't know what it's like in the UK, but it's freezing here in Germany. Yeah. Absolutely freezing.
Best not to talk about it. It's just miserable.
Yeah, definitely. I can't imagine it's much better in the UK anyway. But
I think it was about 5 degrees today, so not as cold as it is for you over in Nuremberg. So.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, we've got Sim Senor checking in as well with Guten Abend.
Guten Abend, yeah.
Good to see you as well. Yeah, if anyone else wants to post in a comment as well, don't forget to give us your tips as well, because obviously we're interested to know what you guys think as well. I think me and Rory last week, we pretty much butchered the prediction. So hopefully myself and Cam will do a little bit better this week. But yeah, just before we get started, a bit of admin as well. So don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Turn on your notifications so you get all of what we're doing here at Over the Bar on the Bundesliga show. Don't forget that we've also got the Football League Weekly as well. So that still goes as well. And I think Reese actually did his first vlog as well. So check that out as well. I think he went to Birmingham City against Exeter just this last weekend. So check that out as well. I'm sure Cam won't agree though as a Wolves fan, but yeah.
Yeah, it's one of our local boys, one of ours.
Yeah, definitely, yeah. Okay, don't forget as well, we're in partnership with Bully News and, of course, the fantastic Bundesliga boxes as well, Rich over there in Norwich. And don't forget, we're also on socials too. If you want to check out what we're doing in terms of kind of ground hopping, because we do a lot of ground hopping here and in the UK, then don't forget to check out our Instagram at OverTheBarFB. And also don't forget our Twitter at OverTheBarFB as well. And also our Blue Sky at the Bundesliga show. So yeah, without further ado, match day 19 is awaiting us. So yeah, obviously the Friday night game, it's a northern derby, Cam, isn't it? I mean, It's going to be pretty cold up there in Wolfsburg as well, I would imagine, with obviously bottom two side Kiel making the relatively short trip to the car city as well of Wolfsburg, the Volkswagen city up there in the north of Germany. So yeah, I'll start on this one. So I think this is a pretty difficult one to tip really in some ways, because obviously Wolfsburg on good form at the minute. I thought they were quite good at Bayern Munich last week when they were unluckily beaten 3-2. That man Amura had another fantastic game as well, didn't he, with 2 really well taken strikes.
Yeah.
As for Kiel, I mean, they had that famous win in the midweek match, didn't they, against Dortmund? But I felt as though they didn't quite do themselves justice last week when they played obviously
Hoffenheim, wasn't it?
Yeah. That was a pity, really, to see them struggle in that game. I just felt as though there were some leggy bodies out there. They only made one change for that particular game. And hopefully the week rest will have given them a chance to recover. I do hope they stick with that midfield of Knudsen and Remberg, because they've really impressed me at times, ahead of obviously the suspended Holtby, who again, I believe, won't be available for this match. But obviously, I think a lot...
Straight red, yeah.
Yeah, I believe so, yeah.
Was it a straight red, if I remember right?
It was a straight red. It was a horrible challenge, wasn't it? Yeah, it was a leg breaker from behind, I believe. Yeah,
it seems like it was only last week, but it seems like ages ago now.
Yeah, it does, yeah, in a way. Yeah, it does, yeah. But yeah, I mean, obviously that front three of Kiel are doing really well, aren't they? I mean, Bernhardsen, Shuto Machino, a friend of the show as well. And obviously that boy, Phil Harris as well, Germany's most English-sounding footballer, I think. Yeah, obviously they've been doing really well for the team, but I still feel as though you've got to go with home advantage in this game. Wolfsburg are playing strong. The last home game, they beat Gladbach 5-1, didn't they? With goals from the likes of Jonas Vind and a double from Lucas Nemecha as well. So they're not lacking any firepower, the Wolves, in this game. I think it should be a decent Friday night watch, actually. And I'm going to go for a 3-1 home win in this. What do you think, Cam?
I think, just building on what you said, it was a shame for Kiel last weekend, because I thought after the Dortmund win, it was a perfect chance to build, playing a struggling Hoffenheim side at the weekend. But it obviously didn't turn out to be the case, and it just raises even more questions about building consistency, really. And if you can't build that consistency, then unfortunately it's not enough to stay in the division. So I can agree with the 3-1 result, to be honest, especially after Wolfsburg's last home game against Gladbach.
Yeah, definitely. And I think obviously it's a very, very kind of packed squad, that Wolfsburg. So if they need to make a couple of changes, then they will be able to do that. Whereas with Kiel, they're a bit short on bodies at times. Anyway, Cam, I'm going to let you lead on probably what the game of the weekend, really, isn't it, between RB Leipzig and Leverkusen?
Yeah, this was a tough one for me when I was thinking of the games before the show, because Leipzig are so difficult to analyse week in, week out, because you don't know which Leipzig you're going to get.
Yeah.
We saw in midweek, yes, they beat Sporting, but they're not firing on all cylinders, are they, at all? They made a big statement against Leverkusen earlier in the season, but they haven't really kicked on since then. I know there's been injuries, and I know last weekend, Šeško and Openda were suspended. But it genuinely depends on which Leipzig turn up on the day, to be honest. And I've gone myself for 2-1 Leverkusen, despite the loss in midweek. But Atleti is a horrible place to go when the Metropolitano are on it in the decibels that they made on, was it Tuesday or Wednesday? Tuesday, I think.
Tuesday, I think it was.
It's an incredibly tough place to go. So I'm not blaming Leverkusen for that, but I think that they will overcome Leipzig, to be honest, by 2-1.
Yeah, I mean, it is an interesting match, isn't it? Because let's not forget that Leipzig, in that game that they won back in summer, that was the only team to beat Leverkusen in the league since May 2023, incredibly, which is just an absolutely insane record.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's not forget that Leverkusen were 2 up in that game as well, before a couple of mistakes from Kovar, I believe, was deputising for Hadatsky in that game. So, yeah, I mean, I didn't feel as though Leipzig particularly deserved to win in the Bayer Arena in that game, to be honest. And Leverkusen will still probably be kicking themselves the fact that they lost that match. But, obviously Leverkusen on much better form now. They've really, really grown into the season. I think before the defeat in the Metropolitano, as you said, they won 10 straight matches. So, I mean, it was some run. And they were a little bit unlucky to lose there, to be honest. I felt as though, a few typical antics from Simeone's men kind of... they are tough to beat there. They are so tough to beat. So.
Atleti in the Champions League, it's always the same, isn't it? It's a horrible place to go when the crowd's on it as well, and Simeone's men are on it. I don't think you can ever blame anybody for losing there, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, it is one of the kind of cauldrons of the Champions League, and it really is. I mean, so I'm actually thinking on the same lines as you, actually, Cam. I think there might be a few more goals, though, because I just think...
You think...
I think Leipzig have been scoring a lot of goals recently. I think Šeško is really back from what I've seen. I mean, he got a goal midweek against Sporting as well, didn't he? And I think he was on a run of 5 straight goals in 5 consecutive games before he got that suspension for the red card against Stuttgart. But, Leverkusen are really playing well. And I think, the likes of Flo Wirtz, Hincapié are really hitting the top form at the minute. I felt as though Tapsoba was probably the weak link at the Metropolitano.
I think
in the defense.
Tar was very poor as well.
He was. He kind of bottled it a little bit, to be honest. Let's be honest. But I think back in Germany, they know how to win games in the Bundesliga, and I'm going to go for a 3-2 away win.
3-2.
But it should be a good game. It's a pity it's not on TV, this one, at least abroad.
Yeah.
Here we can get it on the conference, but I think...
Yeah, well, we have the Bundesliga Goal Arena show on Sky.
Do you know in the UK? Oh, that's not
bad. Well, the sound never comes on until like half an hour into the game.
Really?
Really annoying.
That's ridiculous.
I've sent many infuriated DMs to Sky Help on Twitter the last few months.
Yeah, well, I know that Sky gets quite a lot of stick over there in the UK, doesn't it, with the way it does the Bundesliga coverage sometimes. I think over here, I'm a massive fan of the DAZN. I know you lived in Germany. Cam. I really like the DAZN coverage over here. Yeah.
I think, but even the Champions League coverage as well wasn't the best with Leipzig last night. I think Šeško was taking some right stick from, I think it was Steve McManaman or not.
Was he?
Or was it Robbie Savage? It was one of those two. I can't remember who. But they were trying to compare him and Victor Gyökeres, and it just ended up being the most ill-informed conversation you've ever heard regarding teams abroad, to be honest.
Yeah, some of them really seem clueless, don't they? Let's be honest, when they talk about kind of abroad teams, international teams. Yeah. It's not their expertise sometimes. Yeah. Maybe we'll get a gig one day, Cam, on there.
Yeah. Start doing live watch-alongs.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. But yeah, I'm going to go for a 3-2 away win for Leverkusen. It should be a good watch, as it normally is when these two sides play. There's a lot of good attackers on display. Paddy Schick, our friend as well, I'm sure, will probably fancy getting a goal past this Leipzig defence as well. So let's move on. Another interesting game, really, between the BVB and Werder Bremen. And obviously, the news we've got to discuss, Cam, as well, while we're on this game, is Nuri Sahin.
Yeah, well,
obviously, fined after basically a disastrous 8 months in charge, really. And I'm going to come to you on this one. What do you think? Was it a right decision? Or?
Yeah, I mean, I sent a question in to yourself and Rory for the podcast the other day because, of course, it's the biggest talking point across the Bundesliga at the moment, isn't it? For me, I think there's fingers need to be pointed higher up than Sahin himself, but he didn't do himself any favours in terms of how he set that team up since he's came in the summer. Defensively, they've been shambolic since day one. They've got very fortunate in a number of games. The one against Bochum at home was back in October, I believe it was the biggest one for me. When they went 2-0 down, very lucky to end up coming back and winning that game. They've been let off on too many occasions, and I think it was only a matter of time really before the form really started going downhill. So yeah, I think it was always going to end that way.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think myself and Rory did a show right when he was just appointed, and neither of us agreed with the decision to remove Edin Terzic from his post because, I mean, I know there was a little bit of stuff behind the scenes as well, and I think it was a little bit mutual, but he was doing okay as far as I'm concerned. And I think if they did want to replace him, they should have gone for a big name, really. Maybe it's the English blood in me, but I'm still a fan of, for the big clubs deserve a big name as far as I'm concerned. And I just feel as though Dortmund have undercut themselves with the coaching choices a little bit in recent times. And it will be interesting to see who they go for. I mean,
they have done since Tuchel, really.
Sorry?
I think they've undercut themselves since Tuchel, to be honest.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then now, like you say, names like Niko Kovac being bandied about. It's just, I'm not saying he's a bad manager, of course not, but it's at the level that Borussia Dortmund want to be at. Is it a step forward? I don't think so. I know I keep seeing rumours that they want to go all out for Sebastian Hoeneß in the summer, but why would he leave Stuttgart for a club that like Dortmund, which is very much on a downward spiral at the moment?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, ask obviously Guirassy and Anton as well. I mean, they might be regretting a little bit for leaving the club as well for the BVB because, as you say, there's a bit of a toxic atmosphere around there at the moment in North Rhine-Westphalia, and I just feel as though the club's not really in a good place, to be honest. But ahead of this game, I mean, I did mention to you, in answer to your question, Cam, I said that I didn't fancy Dortmund to win a game until Sahin was removed. And my tip was actually right, that they would lose in Bologna. And obviously that proved to be the final straw for the Turk. But this is another difficult game because although Bremen haven't started 2025 well, they did impress me for long periods of the season. But I mean, against Augsburg last week, I felt as though they were really unlucky at times. I mean, they got some rotten decisions against them. They could have had 2 penalties on another day quite easily for handball offences. And obviously the red card that was rescinded was, to be honest, the evidence was inconclusive as far as I was concerned. I couldn't quite tell if there was a clip on Dutch, but obviously the referee gave the look to Augsburg in that case, and it probably cost Bremen in the end. But this is a game that they'll fancy. They will fancy going to the Signal Iduna Park and picking up a result here. So as a result, I've gone for a 2-2 draw in this one. Dortmund normally score goals at home with the likes of Gittins, Guirassy, Brandt. They've got a lot of quality up there up top, but I feel as though the defense is in disarray at the minute. And Anton, Schlotterbeck, that partnership isn't really working. Chan is not having a good season either at all. And I feel as though they'll be able to play their way through that midfield as well, with the underperforming Pascal Gross most likely starting this game. So I'm going to go for a 2-2, but it should be entertaining, this one. Cam, what do you think?
Yeah, I can agree with that, to be honest, because I think, as you mentioned, Dortmund is too easy to play through. And I don't think that that's going to change for the time being, because I just don't think they've got the personnel to be able to improve on that, really. And Bremen score goals. They
Yeah.
They scored. Was it two or three against? Was it two against Leipzig a few weeks ago?
They played well that game.
Yeah, they did. But that just happened to be one of the weeks that Leipzig were actually on it with Xavi's first game back. So yeah, I think both sides to score, and a 2-2 draw seems fair to me.
Yeah, but definitely one of the games that people will be watching out for. There's quite a lot of good games on the Saturday afternoon this week, and obviously no less than in Breisgau as well, where Freiburg will host the Rekordmeister Bayern Munich. So go on, Cam, I'll let you lead on this one.
Yeah, Freiburg have been a strange side this season because their position in the table hasn't been reflected by their result, by their performances. I think they've been a lot poorer than their position would suggest. Earlier in the season, I was there when they beat Stuttgart on the opening day, and they were electric. From minute one, they were at it.
Yeah.
But they're very in and out. Against Frankfurt, they were very much on top for the sort of 10 minutes after they'd scored, or however long it was. And then as soon as they equalised, it was just a case of a matter of time before they fall to pieces. And then got torn to pieces again on Saturday by Stuttgart. They need to claw back some form, and I can't see it happening this weekend. I know Bayern lost yesterday, but very unfortunate to do so with the amount of chances they created. But all I could see is a Bayern win, and I'm going to go for 3-1.
Yeah, I think obviously myself and Peter were also at Freiburg quite recently, actually, when they played Wolfsburg just before Christmas.
I did see the vlog.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that particular day they played well, but we talked to a few fans before the match, and they basically said this is like a 12th, 13th place team. They have the same view as you, Cam, that it's an overperforming team. I'm also not really convinced by Schuster at all, the coach at the minute. I feel as though at times you look at him, like, as you say, against Stuttgart and Frankfurt, and he looks like a kind of, like a kindergarten child just about to cry. You know what I mean? Like he does look out of his depth. Yeah.
That's the thing, because following on from what Christian Streich did at the club is, of course, going to be difficult. And I get why they went for a name that's really synonymous with Freiburg and their Bundesliga history. But it's just a case of, for the levels they've been at for the last sort of 5 years, do they need a bigger name to really carry on with that trajectory? Or is the club just happy to sit around the sort of 7th to mid-table area, really?
Yeah.
And that's where I eventually see them finishing this season. And I think that will reflect their performances over the course of 34 games, really.
Yeah, definitely. I think they will sink down into the bottom half, in my opinion. Yeah, I think there's a few teams. Probably Dortmund will rise above them eventually over the season. And I think Bremen are definitely better than them, and probably even Gladbach, in truth. But yeah, I definitely think they'll lose this particular game. It's not a nice home game at all against the Rekordmeister, who are obviously hurting from the defeat in Rotterdam, which was a very big shock, wasn't it? And obviously, we're going to get that kind of typical Thomas Muller, we need a reaction comment as well. I mean, normally they do deliver a reaction as well. And unfortunately, Freiburg will probably be on the receiving end of that this weekend. So I've gone for a 4-1, but definitely a clear win for the Rekordmeister. So yeah, a game which is quite close to my heart, obviously, as a guy living in Bavaria, or Franconia to be more precise. But obviously, Augsburg is the nearest Bundesliga team to me, so I kind of have a soft spot for them as well. Against Heidenheim, who are also, it is a bit of a local derby actually, this one, but it's like not really a talked about local derby.
Yeah.
I don't, because obviously the two teams haven't played very much for a number of years, with obviously Augsburg in the Bundesliga and Heidenheim in the Dritte Liga and the Zweite Liga. But this is going to be an interesting match, because Augsburg have really tightened themselves up in recent weeks, haven't they? I mean, 2 clean sheets on the road as well. And I think goalkeeper Finn Darman deserves a lot of credit for that too. Obviously, he came in to replace Labrovic, the underperforming Labrovic, who was the goalkeeper for the entire Hinrunde. But yeah, the young man, Finn Darman, who I felt was a bit hard done to lose his place at the start of the season, actually, has really done well. And the defence has tightened up. I think Zesinger as well, who's come in from Wolfsburg on loan, has been another big part of that tightening up procedure. And obviously they do have quality up front. Let's not forget Maurice is an excellent player.
Yeah, he was fantastic against Union a couple of weeks ago, wasn't he?
Yeah, wow. Yeah. And then obviously they had Essende, who did the same job on Werder, didn't he, with a brace each in those 2 games.
Yeah.
So it was two perfect away performances, really, wasn't it? Which was great to see. But now they're back at home where they're normally stronger against a Heidenheim side who is still not really pulling down any trees at the minute. Obviously, they got that win against Union, but you've got to say probably a lot of that would have been due to the fact that the visitors played with 10 men for most of the game. And then, they got a good point in Bremen with a last-second equaliser, but then they really underwhelmed against Pauli last week, I felt. So Augsburg are going to be the favourites in this one, and consequently, I'm going to go for them to get a 2-1 home win in this one.
Okay. Yeah, I've gone 2-0 personally, so not too far apart. But this just feels like the most archetypal Augsburg season ever, where you just don't know what you're going to get out of them, do you?
Yeah.
It's 1 week they look like a fantastic side, and you think they could push for the upper echelons of mid-table, and then some weeks you watch them, like when they lost 4-0 to Heidenheim earlier in the season. It's baffling as to how their fortunes change week in, week out, to be honest. But yeah, like you said, they've got talent up front, and I think that will see them through over against a struggling Heidenheim side that are still putting in the fight that you'd expect of them.
Yeah.
But just haven't got that quality, really, after losing quality in the summer as well.
Yeah, I think if they put anywhere near the performance that they put in the last two games, they should win, as you say. And I wouldn't be surprised to see 3 straight 2-0s as well. Just a few nice comments in as well from Sim Senor again. He agrees with us that the English coverage is really poor, and he also lived in Germany too, which is interesting. Paul says 2-1 Mainz against Stuttgart. Okay. Oh, that's a big tip. Well, we're coming up to that.
I'm going to have to. There we.
Yeah. I don't think that's going to impress Cam or Rory, to be honest. But and then Rory as well giving his feedback on that one. VFB probs won't care about this game and rotate ahead. Yeah, that was kind of on my mind as well when trying to find a prediction for this one. So go on, Cam. I'm going to let you lead on this match because it's pretty tough.
Just looking at Rory's comment after, isn't there a situation where if Stuttgart and PSG draw, as long as City beat Club Brugge, then they would both still go through anyway?
I believe so, I believe, because I think Bruges are just a couple of at 1 point and like a worse goal difference ahead. So, and City will be on.
If I was Sebastian Hoeneß, I'd be on the phone to Luis Enrique and everyone in these situations. To be honest, 0-0. But of course, Mainz have done brilliantly this season, but they've struggled without Burkhardt, understandably. And I can just see that being the case again this weekend, to be honest. They're still a difficult place. It's a difficult place to go, and they're still a difficult side to play against. But I think with the form of Stuttgart in recent weeks and looking a lot closer to the side that we saw last season, not Union 2.0, as some people were banding about earlier in the season, I've gone myself for 2-1 to the visitors. I just think that the added quality plus the newfound confidence with getting the injured players back after the torrid run, really, between sort of October, November time. So, yeah, I've gone for 2-1.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, they are playing really well, the VFB, at the minute. I watched quite a bit of the game against Slovan Bratislava, and they were really... I felt as though it was a really impressive performance, to be honest, and they should have won way easier.
5 or 6.
Yeah, I mean, the Mittelstadt miss was just unbelievable. I mean, okay, you could say it was a great save, but you've got to be... And Undab missed a few absolute sitters as well, didn't he?
Yeah.
But, yeah, it's a team on form, and I actually don't think they'll massively rotate, to be honest. I think Hoeneß will want to keep the run going, and this is a big chance to really kind of solidify that top 4 place with obviously Leipzig going away, playing Leverkusen, and Mainz are currently also a top 4 challenger as well. So if they can win this and Leipzig lose, then they'll be starting to look quite comfortable in that top 4 place. On top of the form, which is just scintillating at the minute. No lesson against Freiburg in the last Bundesliga game. But having said that, I do trust Mainz. I think Mainz are a really good team and they're well suited to playing stronger teams, in my opinion.
I would agree with that.
Yeah.
It's just the without Jonathan Burkhardt, it just... I don't see where the goals come from. Armando Zeeb missed a huge chance.
He did.
Was it a 0-0 or 1-0?
1-1. I think it was actually. I think he missed 1-1, so he would have put them ahead. But I mean, he was a man that I massively tipped up as well because I saw him 2 or 3 times for Greuther Fürth last season, and he looked a class above in the Zweite Liga. Really, he was one of the best players, along with my ex-Nuremberg guy, Chanozun and Nathaniel Brown. They were 2 excellent players, but he's not really done it for Mainz at times. And obviously, as you mentioned, when Johnny B doesn't play, they do look a lot weaker. But I feel as though the game against Union was like a bit of a one-off. And the thing with Mainz, they're not really suited to games where they're expected to go out and dominate. I don't think they like to play on the counter a lot, and they've got a lot of quality and defensive quality for me as well. And I think Zentner has had a great season. The likes of Bell in the defence, Da Costa have had strong games. But I think against Union, people were tipping them up too much almost and saying it was a foregone conclusion.
Yeah.
They did underwhelm in that game, in truth. But
and I do feel as well, I think Union had to find form at some point after Stefan Baumgart's
That's true. That is
true.
That
win was going to come at some point, wasn't it?
Yeah. I mean, if they'd have lost that one as well against Mainz, they would have been potentially Baumgart would have been in trouble. So yeah, as you say, it was a much bigger game for Union ultimately, that one. But I'm still going to go for a draw here. Actually, I was kind of tossing between 2-2 and 1-1, but I've gone for 1-1 because, as you say, I think the fact that Johnny B is missing, I can see Mainz taking an early lead and then Stuttgart dominating the rest of the game. But I think they are quite strong defensively, Mainz, and they can be dangerous on the break too, even without Johnny B. So it's going to be a hard game for Stuttgart, but I don't think it's going to be a case that Stuttgart just start winning like every single week all of a sudden now. So I think they will drop points here, but it'll still be a decent draw all set.
So at Mainz as well, yeah.
Great. So so Gladbach Bochum, obviously a North Rhine-Westphalen derby as well, isn't it? And it's 2 teams that are Gladbach, we keep trying to talk them up. We keep trying to say they're back, but they're really
so
not
hit and
back,
miss. So hit and miss. And just yet again, like when we said about both Leipzig and Augsburg, you just don't know what you're going to get of this Gladbach team. It's quite exciting when you turn them on every week and you wonder what you're going to see. But sometimes some of the football they play is so dull. And it's extremely frustrating sometimes against Bayern. That was a very not the best of games. It was very sort of I can't find the right word for it.
Dire. It was dire, really. I mean, it was defensive. They were trying to play for a 0-0, I think, to be honest, and just try and catch them on the break. But I mean, I don't know what to say about Gladbach because I'm the guy on this show that's always trying to big up Gladbach, but I agree with a lot of what you're saying. And it's just, I don't know why Sturger's not getting more game time. I don't know whether he's fallen out with Sturger. And I have enjoyed some of what Sioane has done in the past, back in the days at Leverkusen. And at times at Gladbach, he does get a few decent things going with that squad. But there's too many players that are just underperforming in there. And I think he is missing Honorat as well. I think he's the kind of playmaker in that team, isn't he? Kleindienst is the evergreen as far as I'm concerned. I can't say a bad word about him. He's just a legend, basically. But it's just even guys like Itakura. I mean, he's got so much potential, but he does have bad games, doesn't he, as well? And it's, but they've got to beat Bochum here for me, surely, because Bochum travel terribly. They're awful on the road. I think they've only picked up 1 point this season on the road. So I'm still going to go for a 2-0, but I don't think it'll be a pretty game, this one, to be honest.
I can agree. It's not on my list in terms of tuning in, but it'll be one of them that stick the highlights on Saturday night and then move on to next week.
And it is a top field as well, which is a bit disappointing. But it's the 7:30 kickoff, or 6:30 kickoff in Germany.
It's just as I'm getting back from the Wolves game, so I'll be debriefing that.
You won't have to waste your time watching that one. But you never know. It might end up being 3-3. That's what the Bundesliga
we've said
this sometimes, isn't it?
That's the frustrating thing, though, because for me at the time in that sort of mid-table region, I thought they won the transfer window, to be honest, especially with Sturger and Kleindienst. They're top signings for that sort of upper echelons of mid-table where they want to be. And as you say, it's just hit and miss, and there's too many players who can just have a few good games and then straight back out of form. And they're a frustrating side, I must admit.
And I think at fullback, they've had big problems. I mean, Liner was absolutely dreadful in the last game, really. He's so poor. And I think, he's just been. Scally's another one that's hit and miss, isn't he?
Again.
Yeah, very hit and miss, really. Yeah. So there are weaknesses in that squad, but they should still have enough to beat the bottom side. Both of them. You might not be bottom for long because obviously we are waiting on that decision as well, whether they get those 2 extra points as well against Union. But I think it's been 2 weeks now since we've been waiting on that. So hopefully it's not going to be too long before we find that out. But anyway, Cam, I'm going to let you lead out on the first of the 2 Sunday games, which is obviously Hoffenheim, Frankfurt.
Yeah, it's Frankfurt. This one's strange because I know everybody's looking at the Marmouche stuff and how are they going to perform without him. But let's not forget they still won last week without him. And I know it's still a big talking point. And I do think they've got enough to beat Hoffenheim, who were yet again just out of form completely. I know they beat Kiel last weekend, a very, very needed win. But with Kramarić's comments last week, it's just not a nice place to be at the moment. Against Tottenham tonight, they failed to capitalise against an injury-stricken Tottenham side. And I can just only see it going one way, and I've gone for 3-1 to the visitors.
Yeah, we completely match up there. Yeah, I don't actually feel Marmouche is an amazing player, really, like one of the best in the Bundesliga. But I think Frankfurt have got other outlets as well, really. And I think the performance last week against Dortmund was really convincing, considering that they'd lost the best player, And
a statement as well, I think, massively.
It was, yeah. I think there's a lot going right for Topmuller's side at the minute, and I'm hoping it gives my boy Chano Zun a little bit more game time as well, because, after watching him delight the Nuremberg fans last year, we've not seen enough of him in the SGE this year at times.
That's the trouble, though, because that Frankfurt midfield is incredibly difficult to properly break into, isn't it?
Exactly, yeah. I mean, they've got so many good players still, and I mean, their season just keeps going from strength to strength, really, doesn't it? And they look good for top 4 as things stand, which would mark a fantastic season for them. And don't forget, they're still in the Europa League and going pretty strong in that as well. So I wouldn't mind seeing a bit more of Matanovic as well. I think he's looked hard.
Yeah. Football manager legend for me.
Yeah, is he? Yeah.
Yeah.
He's a player with potential as well. He's a different kind of striker because he's more like a kind of target man, isn't he?
Yeah.
I would quite like to see him play alongside Ekitike at some stage as well.
Just to see how that dynamic works. Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
But it might be more likely that we'll see that in the Europa League rather than the league, because obviously I think in the league he's going to want to play his strongest and most trusted team.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Especially with the top 4 race ongoing as well.
Yeah.
I think I don't think they're in the title picture. I know there was a couple of weeks where people liked to think that they were. I can't see that in all honesty.
Yeah.
But if they're looking to be the best of the rest outside that top 2, then absolutely you need to play your best team.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is a game that they'll see as a must-win because, as you say, it's against the Hoffenheim side who ship goals left, right and centre. And, okay, they've got a lot of good strikers, but they just don't seem to be able to find a team that's sticking at the minute, do they? I do like Moerstedt, though, the youngster that's come through.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
But, yeah, there's just so many kind of transfer misses, really, there at that club at the minute that it's hard to see them competing. I guess the stadium will just be filled with Frankfurt fans as well. It'll be like a home game for them, this one, because there's not that far between these two. I bet 100 kilometers or so between Hoffenheim and Frankfurt, and there'll be a lot of SG fans there.
Oh, definitely. I mean, I watched the Tottenham game tonight, and there was a pretty good atmosphere in there, as there probably should be for a big Europa League game against a big side. But it's, as you say, they never sell out at home in the league anyway, do they?
No.
So, it's going to be full of travelling Frankfurters on Sunday.
They might be able to sell it out for them, perhaps. But it should be a good game.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and then an interesting one to finish off, Pauli Union, the hipster derby, as I like to call it. Yeah. I think a lot of English hipsters will be enjoying watching this game, I think, between these two teams, very popular teams on the continent as well, especially for in England and the US. I believe they've got a lot of support there. Obviously, Pauli, I mean, they've got this incredible stat. They've not scored in 7 of their 8 home games, which just blows my mind, really, to be honest. But it's just bizarre, basically, isn't it? Yeah, I see you like my comments, Sim as well. Yeah, the hipster derby. We should make that stick as well, shouldn't we? If these two teams stay up.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, as for the game, I think Pauli have got to find a way to start scoring, basically, because it's been too long, really. It's been too long. But away from home, they've won 4 games and they do okay away from home. But 7 games they've not scored in at home this year. That's just ridiculous numbers, basically. And Union are almost as bad on the road. Like, they don't score on the road. So I'm not sure whether it's going to be
It's going to be a case of who cancel, if they're going to cancel each other out at the end of the day, and it'd be the most boring 0-0 ever.
It could be. It could easily be this one, yeah. But, you know, Pauli, I do see a little bit in the Pauli team. I see more in their team than Union, to be honest. And I do like Afellay, and the former Bolton Wanderers man as well, by the way. He's been really good this season. I also think they've got a really solid defense. I love Vasily, the goalkeeper. I think has really impressed me. And Smith and Jackson Irvine and the like. So there is quality, and there's a lot of fight in that team as well. Union, I'm still not fully convinced they're back after that win last week. They needed a little bit of luck, Seed missing that chance, and then a bit of a soft penalty for the 2-1, really, I thought. So I am going to go for a 1-0 Pauli win here, but I don't think it's going to be pretty by any means, but it should be entertaining in its own way. What do you think, Cam?
Yeah, I can definitely see that, and I couldn't believe it when I sent in my thoughts when I had to grade Union's season for the mid-season review thing that you did a few weeks ago. And it was these two sides that had the joint best defence behind Bayern, which I could not believe that to be honest, at first. But then just looking back, and it's every St. Pauli game I've watched and every Union game I've watched this season, there never seems to be many goals at all, which is why, as you say, I can see it being low scoring. Knowing us, we're going to get this completely wrong, and it'll be a 5-goal thriller.
Yeah, it could be.
But no, I don't think Union are necessarily back after last weekend. I think they needed to get a result at home, then dismal on the road, and Pauli will be keen to start picking up results at home, to be honest. So, yeah, I can definitely see a 1-0.
Yeah,
with Jackson Irvine, the championship icon, ready to score.
Exactly, yeah, the king of the hipsters scoring the winner in the hipster derby. Yeah, that'd be so.
Remember him.
Yeah,
I still remember him playing against us for Burton when Burton got promoted to the championship. How many years ago now? 9 years ago. Wow.
Yeah, I forgot that he played in England as well, didn't he? Yeah, he
played for Burton and Hull.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, it's but I mean, over here in Germany, he's really rated, isn't he? So
big time.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's because he's found the club for his personality. Really, I think it's like a perfect match, basically, because he is an eccentric character, isn't he? And he's found an eccentric club to play for, basically. So it's a perfect match in many ways. But yeah, let's have a look at the table before we finish up today. So yeah, if we are correct, then the 4-point lead will remain from Bayern Munich over Leverkusen, with also Frankfurt winning. And according to one of the few games we disagreed on tonight, obviously Cam went for a Stuttgart win, I went for a draw in that game. But if that happens, it would be the table would be looking quite pretty on Sunday evening for the VfB, wouldn't it? Yeah, and then moving towards the bottom, it's as you've been for most of the season, really, with that bottom three, Bochum, Kiel, and Heidenheim, potentially all three of them losing with difficult away fixtures ahead this weekend. Just before we stop, Cam, I mean, obviously as a VfB fan, I mean, where do you expect them to finish? Would you take a top 4, or do you think they can even finish a little bit higher in 3rd or 2nd, potentially?
Yeah, this is speaking on behalf as the honorary Stuttgart fan. When I spoke to people in the summer, it was simply a case of that nobody expects to repeat what happened last season, but just being in and around that race for European football, even if they finish 6th or 7th, somewhere in and around that position would be fantastic, especially after losing arguably the 2 biggest names in the summer. Then Demirovic hasn't really hit the heights expected, but then it's also adjusting to a completely new style of play under Sebastian Hoeneß. So I think with all the injuries that have took place a few months ago, and the awful run of form in which they lost 5-1 to Red Star, and then was just very inconsistent. I think the fourth place, people would snap your hands off at that right now.
Yeah, definitely. I think it would represent a really good season, especially if they can make the Champions League playoffs as well. You know, I mean, we don't know who they get in that. It could be anyone, as far as I know. So, but it'd be another entertaining two-legged tie, wouldn't it? So,
and I think it just shows as well that the club wants to stay there at this top level and keep on building to be back at the top end of the Bundesliga again consistently. So, because I think there's a lot of clubs. I mean, me and Peter spoke about it in the summer at the Euros, of just about how many clubs are in that second division that probably should still be in the upper echelons of the Bundesliga. And Stuttgart's one of those names that you think of that should be at the top end of the Bundesliga, really, from a romantic point of view. So, yeah, it's nice to see.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, obviously they've had the bad days as well. Don't forget they were in the second league only 5 years ago, was it? So they've really kind of rebuilt the club. And obviously the glory days of 2007-8 when they won the league. And let's not forget that Nuremberg beat them in the Pokal final in 2007 as well. So yeah, we got that one over you, but probably the only win we've had over you in the last 20 years, to be honest. But yeah, it's obviously that was the last glory days, and Sebastian Hoeneß has well and truly brought the glory days back for the BFB, hasn't he? So yeah, thanks again, guys, for joining us today. Some really nice chat as well in there. Thanks to the guys that commented and liked the show. Don't forget to, again, as I mentioned before, to follow our Instagram as well, at Over the Bar FB. We post all of the games we go to live and also some vlogs as well. Don't forget, myself and Peter did a string of vlogs as well just before the international, the winter break, really, wasn't it? And yeah, don't forget to check out our Blue Sky as well at the Bundesliga show, and also at Over the Bar FB on X as well. So yeah, thank you very much again, and thanks to Cam. It was great to see you back.
Yeah, absolutely.
We'll be seeing more of you again in the coming weeks, and yeah, we'll see you again on. Actually, the boys will be back as well tomorrow for the fantasy football show. So don't forget that tomorrow morning. So see you then, guys. Ciao, ciao.